So today, our discussion would be on Philippine resources. It's a continuation of what we have discussed last time, as well as a clarification na lang, specifically for the people who did not manage to understand last time's lesson. I would refer to the book for specific parts of this lecture. So please open your book to the pages that I will indicate so that you will learn more about the lesson. I'll also upload a video for the next lesson, which is on the different economic systems. So please also post it for that specific video. Okay, so we already discussed this part. This is known as production. I'll just go on to the next part of the slide. Ayan. When we're talking about the four factors of production, we have labor, land, capital, as well as entrepreneurship. In this picture, we could see that you have the specific factors already. So, yung labor natin, di ba, yung tao na pumipitas ng peach. And then yung land, 'di ba, yung puno mismo ng peach tapos yung soil and so on. And then you also have capital that's here. That's the tractor that they use to deliver as well as to carry all of these peaches from place to place. And you could see the entrepreneur, she's looking at ayan. She's looking at the production, right? Or the process of picking peaches. Ayan. When we're talking about entrepreneurship, later on, we will discuss this and the difference between an entrepreneur and a laborer. But with regards to the definitions, the laborer is the person who gives out his physical, mental skills to be able to make sure that a business runs, right? And does all the hard work for the business. You also have the factor of entrepreneurship, which organizes all of the factors of production. So, siya yung magdi-decide kung ilang capital, kung ilang tractor yung kailangan, siya magdi-decide kung ilan yung labor na kailangan, siya magdi-decide kung gaano kalaki yung lupa na kailangan at kung kaya ba nila yan lahat, and so on. Okay. With regards to capital, we have two kinds of capital. So you have physical capital, and physical capital could be distinguished into many, many types. So for example, you have the buildings, right? It's a kind of physical capital na hawakan at nakikita at saka nagagamit sa pagkaroon ng business, right? So for example, kapag meron tayong apartment, right? The apartment itself is physical capital. But if you also have cement, right, or martillo, so on, drills, you have machines, this is also physical capital because these certain tools help the business operate. But hindi lang yun yung kinakailangan. Para magkaroon ng flow, right? At para magkaroon ng purchasing ng iba pang mga kailangan, you also need financial capital, right? The reason why you are able to purchase all of these things and as well as to purchase more and more of these things is if you have money, if you have checks, if you have credit card, and so on. Anything that does not or you not use in the business operation, but it's a way to keep the business going is physical capital or financial capital pala. Ayan. So you have the money and so on. Okay. So with regards to your factor of production, you have, ayan. Tingnan natin. So yung peach natin, siguro hindi lang yung peach yung sinesell nila. They could actually convert it to many, many kinds of products, right? So you could have peach jam, you could also have peach candies, you could also have peach juice. And that's what the entrepreneur does. So the entrepreneur innovates with regard to the kinds of products that they could produce. Okay. Ayan. So I hope it is clear the different types of factors of production at bakit kailangan sila. Again, this is the end product. All of these are end product. But to be able to get an end product, you need all of these work and all of these tools and so on. Ayan. Let's look at the Philippine geography and kung paano nakaka-influence yung geography ng Pilipinas sa klase ng mga produkto at klase ng mga businesses na mayroon tayo. Ayan, and resources that we actually have. So the Philippines is an archipelago. It's the second largest archipelago after Indonesia, which means that you have a lot of coastline. That's it. It's surrounded by water. You have South China Sea on the west, Philippine Sea on the east, and Celebes Sea sa ilalim. And then you also have the Luzon Strait, the one that is between Taiwan as well as the Philippines. And all of the islands here are also surrounded by water, right? And this means that the industries that are in the Philippines, right, has to do with tourism, right, because of the beaches that we have, the kind of weather that we have, and so on. And you also have fishing, right? So marami tayong mga marine resources, and that's why we have a lot of research with regards to marine and aquatic resources happening in the Philippines here. Not only is this because marami tayong mga coastal area, tsaka maraming tubig, but we're also part of the Coral Triangle. So the Coral Triangle, this is a sort of place, right, or collection of places kung saan maraming mga marine resources and diverse yung mga marine resources natin. Okay. With regards to our natural resources, you have a lot of species that are endemic to us. And when we're talking about endemic, nakikita lang sa ating bansa. Ayun. Okay. With regards to the kind of weather that we have, the reason why super patok yung tourism is because of the kind of tropical country that we are in. Ayan. So you have beaches, and then also we have a lot of geothermal energy sources because we're in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Ayan. So you have Canlaon, for example. Later on, you will see that the reason why Visayas is dependent on geothermal energy is because it has this kind of volcanoes that it uses, or basta geothermal energy sources that it uses so that it could be able to generate electricity from it. Ayan. If you look at the most active volcano, you have actually Luzon, right? But most of their energy sources actually come from coal. Ayan. So there's something really weird happening there. Ayan. So with regards to resources, they could be categorized into 4 types. The 4 factors of production are, okay, the first one is the natural resources or land. And this is the factor of production that includes all the resources that are given by nature, from the water forms to the land forms, as well as everything in between. And then it could be further categorized into many categories. Okay. So land is the primary source of raw materials. That's on page 35, and it is the source, right, of our forest resources, our agricultural resources, as well as all the other things. The reason why we are able to create businesses on land, right, is because, diba, we could convert land into different purposes. So we use land for commercial purposes, we use land for residential purposes, and so on. And all of these makes land productive, right? But, ayun, when we're talking about land, hindi land lang talaga hab, pero this means all types of natural resources, all raw materials that could be extracted from nature is categorized as land. Okay, so you could further categorize it not only to forest resources and mineral and energy resources, but aquatic resources are also categorized as part of land in terms of being a factor of production. Okay, the income from land is also known as rent. Ayan, rent. And land could be further categorized into non-disposable or disposable land. On page 38, when we're talking about, ayan, the land area of the Philippines has 2 major classifications: forest land and disposable or alienable land. Ayan. When we're talking about alienable land, these are the lands that could be converted into productive purposes. So commercial, agricultural, and so on. And this also means that it could be owned privately. Pwedeng magmay-ari ng land na iyon. But the other type of land, non-alienable land, is the forest land and could only be owned by the government. So that's government property or public property, right? Or public forest. But when we're talking about public forest, hindi ibig sabihin na parang public park siya. Okay? So it means that it's protected by the government, right? And later on, we will look at the different types of forests that the Philippines has. Okay. With regard to the Philippines, around 47% of the land is alienable or disposable and 53% is forest land, right? But, okay, it will be increasing yung ating non-forest land because there's such a big demand for land to be converted into more productive purposes. Yan. Okay, so we already covered this last time. Diba? This is commercial purpose, anything that has to do with services. And for this one, you have the hospital services. This one is agricultural land, so it's a productive use of land. Okay, imagine nyo, ayan. So far as yung reason kung bakit gusto i-convert ng gobyerno at ng mga tao, kasi yung sa forest land, kapag i-measure mo yan by hectare or by square meter, makikita mo na konting-konti yung pera na nakukuha dyan. Pero example, eto, sabihin natin this is around so, I don't know the 400 square meters, whatever. 400 square meters yung area neto. So imagine 400 square meters ng forest land, tsaka 400 square meters neto ng hospital. Saan yung mas maraming pera kang makukuha? 'Di ba yung hospital kasi it generates money. Tama? Every time na may pupunta dyan na tao, magpipay sa hospital and the hospital would pay tax if it's a private hospital. But for this one, ano lang makukuha mo dyan? Or for example, sa agricultural land, right? May inaane, tapos may sinisel. So you could actually earn more money here. But obviously, mas maraming kinukuha dito, di ba? Mas maraming yield ng pera per square meter here. And you also have residential area. Ayan. So nagbabayad sila ng renta. And then what happens is that they generate income for the businesses and this generates taxes. So the government themselves, kapag puro pera lang iniisip nila, they have no incentive at all to protect our forest land, right? Because it's not generating as much income in the form of taxes compared to our different kinds of land, right? If you're just looking for considerations of kung saan mas maraming magkakapera. Okay, but there are certain things that we have to consider as well, right? Again, hindi lang tayo yung mga creatures dito sa world. So the forest land, even though it's not really generating a lot of income, it also means that we're protecting the creatures that actually live there. And that's something that's not or could not be priced at all, right? Specifically, kapag endemic yung species, nakikita lang sa Pilipinas, di ba? Paano mo yan ipagpapalit sa pera, di ba? For example, there's a Philippine eagle there and they're dying. Why would you exchange that for money, right? Per square meter and so on. Okay, you also have mangrove forest, and it's a specific type of forest land, and this is also getting more endangered right now. So sa Aklan, we have one. We have, actually marami tayong mga mangrove forest dito, but the most popular one is the one in Bakawan, diba? Yung Bakawan Eco Park. Ayan, sa may Old Buswang or New Buswang pala. Okay, when we're talking about forest lands, that's on page 38. They come in different types. So all types of forests in the Philippines are basically rainforests because we live in a tropical country. We receive a lot of rain. But we have different types. You have mangrove forests. So these types of forests are ones wherein, syempre, mangrove, right? And yung mangrove, yung purpose nila, hindi lang yan pang habitat para sa mga isda, which they are, but they're also protecting us from storm surges, from tsunamis, and so on, right? So they're very valuable in terms of protection from the ocean and from whatever weather events that we could have. And talagang makakatulong yan, lalo na kapag magkakaroon ng mas maraming effects yung climate change natin. So it's really good to preserve mangroves in coastal areas. And you also have beach forest. So, explainable. Ito yung forest na meron yung beaches. And syempre, iba't ibang klaseng puno yung tumutubo dyan. Pero, di ba, coconuts, for example, and also certain types of trees are there or present there. You also have Molave or limestone forest. The reason why it's called Molave forest is because usually only the Molave tree grows here sa may limestone. So there's very little soil there and a lot of stone or limestone. That's the whitish rock that you can see there. Ayan, so very white rock. And this one is in Palawan. And somehow they managed to grow here. Ayan. So they could grow to 20 meters tall. Ayan. So very tall trees. And you also have the dipterocarp forest. Yan, wait lang. Before that pala, aside from Mojave forest, you also have dwarf trees. Ayan. So for example, eto dwarf trees yan. And the reason for that is because they receive very, very small nutrients. Okay, so their growths are stunted. Ibig sabihin, parang ano sila, parang malnourished, kaya hindi sila nag-grow ng maayos, 'di ba? Kasi konting-konti lang yung nutrients sila. The Molave, if you want to get a symbol for a person who grows in hard circumstances, that's a good symbol also. Ayan. You also have the dipterocarp forest. So, eto yung forest natin kung saan marami tayong mga hardwoods na kinukuha. On page 38, the Philippines has about 50 species of trees in the dipterocarp family. The noted dipterocarps are the lawaan, tangile, yakal, bagtikan, apitong, kamagong, and the nara tree, our national tree. So this is the primary source of hardwood. Ayan. Diyan yung mga nagtutroso pumupunta. Okay, so this is used for the construction as well as manufacturing of furniture. Aside from that, you also have the montane forest. The reason for the word montane is because these are mountain forests. Okay. So unlike the dipterocarp forest, which are usually lowland forest, mountain forest or montane forest, syempre, dun sila sa may mountainous na area. And usually, yung mga nag-grow dito sa mountain forest or sa montane forest are, you have oak as well as laurel. Ayan. Usually, they would be found above 1,000 meters above water. By the way, yung mga nag-grow lang na trees sa mga coastal areas is yung balete tree, you have agoho tree, talisay, 'di ba? Yung talisay palagi yan nag-grow sa mga beaches, dapdap, coconut tree, and so on. Ayan. You also have this one. You have pine forest. Makikita to sa mga Cordillera, sa may Zambales, sa may Baguio, dun sa mga lalamig na lugar. And hindi lang yan makikita nyo to sa ibang bansa kapag pumunta kayo doon sa mga ibang bansa, tapos malamig yung bansa, you'll always see the pine trees, right? Because they thrive in that kind of cold environment. And you also have, the last one, you have the mossy forests. So when we're talking about mossy forests, usually these forests are in very high places as well. The reason for this, or the reason why they grow so small, is because the places that they are in are very cold as well as windy. So, walang incentive na lumaki yung puno, 'di ba? Kasi cold nga, tsaka windy. Kapag mataas, then you're most likely to not survive, right? And also, kapag mataas, you need to make sure that the nutrients from below could actually go up, right, to the highest level. Ayun, because the trees operate the same way as us. If it's cold, right? You have more incentive na you stay small, right? So that mas madali sa iyo mag-thrive or mag-grow. Ayan. So, all of these forests gives us different kinds of resources. Ayan. Okay. With regards to our problems with regards to the forest area, so the Philippines has been a rich source of revenues